So in this tutorial we're gonna talk about cross-hatching technique. I'm gonna show you how to do it step by step, and by the end of this video you'll have more clear understanding of the technique. Okay, let's go. Before we get to more complex subjects like a portrait, we need to go through the theory very quickly, okay? So just bear with me. Okay, so I'm sure you heard this word before, the word value. Okay, so it means how dark or light something is. And that's it. That's all you need to know to use it in cross-hatching. If you draw this can be anything, right? But as soon as you add some value to it, you have a cube. If you do this, you have a cube on a surface. That's it. That's the key. The first step to cross-hatching is to learn how to draw straight lines evenly spaced. And by spacing them closer to each other, you make a darker value. The next step would be to learn how to draw these lines in a particular shape. So you just draw yourself some random shapes and you learn how to draw these lines within this shape. I'm trying to go fast to save time, but the slower you do it, the more precise you will get. And now we're placing some lines across the previous ones, thus making a cross-hatching. And again, depends on how close your lines are, you control your value. And by slightly expanding the space between your lines, you can make a gradient. There is a certain point after which the space between lines becomes too wide and it looks just like lines rather than a shape of tone. And that depends on the width of your lines and the tool you're using. You can draw your lines perpendicularly or at an angle. And then you can combine both. Usually the amount of layers correlates to your value. However, you can make darker tones with less layers. It all depends on how close your lines are. For example, here we have 4 layers of hatching and here only 2. However, we can clearly see that this one is darker. When you're just starting with a cross-hatching, I recommend stick to the 4 tones and just master those, and then you'll have more understanding on how to minimize the use of tone, and then you can vary it and dive deeper into half tones and stuff like that. Right, so let's draw our beloved gradient strip. So yes, you can start with the simple exercises like this, just to get yourself familiar with the technique, with the spacing of lines and with a tool that you prefer. Okay, so let's apply our theory in practice and see how we will do. So I would recommend to start with a accurate drawing, meaning you have more refined lines and you know which shapes to follow. After you have your line drawing, establish the shapes, the darkest ones and more light ones, and start with the smallest dark shapes because they can be lost later. Because I'm sure that this shape works in a pencil, so I have no fear of losing it later, so I can push it to the darkest value right away. So as I said in the beginning, I recommend to use 4 values when you're just starting, and here I applied 3 and kept 1 layer for later. However, even if I apply 2 layers here, my shape here will be visible and clear. And just to balance it out, we'll draw this eye, this eyebrow and the lips. This whole shape is one solid patch of tone, so I need to do it in one pass preferably. However, we have patches that are darker, okay, so I want to establish them first with the lines of other direction, and that's why you should keep your drawing clean, so it helps you, it's like your best friend. And after you'll get more familiar with the technique and lines, you can even curve them around the form, but that's a topic for another tutorial. And now we are ready to go ahead and throw this blanket of a tone here. Okay, so this is a good example of one thing I wanted to cover, is that sometimes you can show the change of plane with a change of line direction, not with a tone. So for example, here we have one layer of strokes, right? And this part is also one plane. However, it will be too aligned, it will get lost, so we just change the direction. So the hair shape is very large, and if we do it in just one direction, it might appear boring, so we need to change some directions within this shape. So now we just continue to add little details like this where needed. This was more or less measured or calculated approach, right, where you think ahead. And now let's try chaotic approach. The more time you give yourself to work on a drawing, the more measured you can be and measure your lines precisely, like keep your hand very steady, pay attention to every angle of every line. But sometimes you just want to have fun, so one of the keys I'll show you with a pencil is to dash the line and not to walk it, you know, like this, not like this. Okay, this is it. I hope you found something useful, and I'll see you next time.